I never thought I'd be posting here. I'm using a throwaway for obvious reasons, because my main account is known by my family, and frankly, I'm still shaking while I type this. This whole situation feels like a bad Lifetime movie, but it's my life right now. I, M32, have been married to my wife, Chloe, F28, for 4 years. For the most part, our marriage is solid. I love her more than anything. But the final boss of our relationship has always been her mother, Evelyn. Evelyn is the definition of a narcissistic matriarch. She views her children, Chloe and her younger brother Julian, M24, as extensions of herself. However, there is a clear hierarchy. Chloe is the fixer, the one who has to handle Evelyn's emotional outbursts. Julian? Julian is the golden child. He can do no wrong. He's 24, has never held a job for more than 3 months, and lives in a condo that Evelyn pays for using the family fund, which is really just her late husband's life insurance that she hoards. Now, let's get to the catalyst. 2 weeks ago, my grandfather Silas passed away. Silas was my hero. He was a self-made man who owned a sprawling 40-acre estate with a Victorian-style farmhouse that has been in our family for 3 generations. He and I were incredibly close. I spent every summer there. When he got sick, I was the one who moved him into hospice care. I was the one who sat by his bed for 18 hours a day. I was the one holding his hand when he took his last breath. Evelyn, on the other hand, always looked down on Silas. She called him a dirty farmer and hated that Chloe and I spent so much time at the estate. She wanted us at her country club. But the moment Silas died, her tune changed. Suddenly, she was so heartbroken for my loss. Last Thursday was the wake. It was a private gathering at Silas's house, the farmhouse. It was supposed to be a time for reflection. I was a mess. I hadn't slept in 48 hours. Chloe was being supportive, or so I thought, but she was also busy playing hostess because Evelyn had invited a bunch of her friends to my grandfather's wake. People who didn't even know him. I was in the study, trying to find a specific photo of Silas for the memorial slideshow when I heard voices in the hallway. It was Evelyn and Julian. I froze. I don't know why, but my gut told me to listen. Evelyn's voice was sharp, that business tone she gets. She said, "Julian, don't worry about the decor. We'll gut this room first. It's too rustic. Once the deed transfer is finalized, we can put it on the market." The developer I spoke to said the acreage alone is worth $2 million. My heart stopped. I felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. Julian replied, "But Mom, won't Mark be pissed? I mean, he basically lived here." Evelyn scoffed. "Mark is a grieving, emotional wreck. He won't notice the paperwork until it's signed. Chloe will talk him into it. She knows that if you get this inheritance, the family stays secure. Mark doesn't need this house. He has a career. You need a foundation." I felt a cold, sharp rage wash over me. I looked down at the desk. There was a folder I hadn't noticed before. It was tucked under a pile of Silas's old ledger books. I opened it. Inside were deed of gift documents. They were drafted to transfer the entire Blackwood estate from my name, as the sole beneficiary of Silas's will, to a family trust controlled by Evelyn and Julian. There was a sticky note on the signature line that said, "Chloe, get him to sign tonight. Tell him it's for the tax indemnity." My wife was in on this? I felt like I was going to vomit. I walked out of that study like a ghost. I found Chloe in the kitchen, pouring wine for one of Evelyn's bridge club friends. I grabbed her arm, not hard, but firmly, and pulled her into the pantry. "Mark, you're shaking," she said, looking concerned. God, she looked so sincere. "Are you okay? Do you need to lie down?" "I found the papers, Chloe," I whispered. The color drained from her face so fast I thought she might faint. "Mark, wait," she started, her voice trembling. "It's not what it looks like. My mom, she said it was the only way to protect the property from the estate taxes. She said Julian would just be a silent partner to help with the upkeep." "A silent partner?" I hissed. "I heard her, Chloe. I heard her telling Julian they were going to gut the house and sell the land to developers. This is my grandfather's legacy, and you were going to trick me into signing it away at his wake?" She started crying. "She pressured me. You know how she is. She said if I didn't help, she'd cut me out of her will and tell everyone you were being selfish during a family crisis. I was going to tell you. I didn't want to ruin the funeral." "You didn't want to ruin the funeral," I repeated, my voice rising. So you decided to help your mother rob me while I'm mourning the man who was more of a father to me than anyone. At this point, the kitchen had gone silent. People were staring through the open pantry door. I didn't care. The filter was gone. I walked out into the living room where Evelyn was holding a glass of expensive bourbon, my grandfather's bourbon. She was holding court, laughing about some trip to the Hamptons. I walked right up to her. "Evelyn?" I said, my voice projecting across the room. The room went dead silent. "I need you to leave. Now." She blinked, putting on her confused old lady act. "Mark, darling, you're clearly exhausted. The grief is getting to—" "I found the deed of gift, Evelyn," I interrupted. I held up the folder. I saw several people in the room, actual family friends of Silas, look at each other in confusion. "I heard you telling Julian how you're going to gut this house and sell it for $2 million. My grandfather isn't even in the ground yet, and you're already measuring the drapes for your golden child's payout." Her face shifted. The mask fell. Her eyes went cold and narrow. "You are being incredibly disrespectful. That property is a family asset. It shouldn't belong to one person. Chloe is part of this family, and Julian is her brother. You're being greedy." "Greedy?" I laughed, and it sounded manic even to me. "This house was left to me, by name. Silas didn't even mention you in the will except to say he hoped you'd finally find a hobby that wasn't other people's business. Now get out. Take Julian. Take your bridge club, and take these fraudulent papers with you." Julian tried to step forward. "Hey man, don't talk to my mom like—" "Shut up, Julian," I snapped. "You've never worked a day in your life. You want this house? Go buy one. But you're never setting foot on Blackwood land again." Evelyn stood up, her chin trembling with fake indignation. "Fine. If this is how you treat family, then you have no family. Chloe, let's go. Let him rot in this dusty old tomb." Everyone looked at Chloe. She was standing in the kitchen doorway, tears streaming down her face. She looked at me, then at her mother. She didn't move. "Chloe," Evelyn barked. "Now." Chloe whispered, "I'm staying with my husband, Mom." Evelyn's face twisted into something truly ugly. "Then you're dead to me too. Don't call me when he loses everything because he's too proud to take advice." She swept out of the house, Julian trailing behind her like a kicked puppy. Her friends followed, looking incredibly awkward. Once they were gone, the house felt cavernous. The remaining guests, mostly Silas's old friends, came up to me and offered their support, but I couldn't process it. I went to the porch and sat in Silas's old rocking chair. Chloe came out about 20 minutes later. She tried to touch my shoulder, but I flinched. "Mark, please," she sobbed. "I was scared. My mother has controlled every aspect of my life since I was 5. I didn't know how to say no to her." "You said yes to betraying me," I said, not looking at her. "That's the part I can't get past. You were going to let me sign those papers tonight. You had the pen ready. It's been 3 days. I haven't slept in the same bed as her. She's been nonstop crying and apologizing, but I also found out that Evelyn has been trashing me all over Facebook, telling the entire extended family that I assaulted her and stole the house from the family trust. I'm getting nasty texts from cousins I haven't seen in a decade. I'm sitting in this big, empty, beautiful house, and I feel like I've lost everything anyway. It for blowing up the family? Time passed since last post. 48 hours. I'm sitting in Silas's study right now. The air in here still smells like his pipe tobacco and old leather, a smell that used to bring me so much peace, but now it just feels like a heavy weight on my chest. I haven't slept. Every time I close my eyes, I see the look on Chloe's face when I found those papers. It wasn't just fear, it was calculation. And that realization is breaking me in ways I didn't know were possible. The last 48 hours have been a blur of legal consultations, screaming phone calls, and the slow, agonizing realization that this rabbit hole goes much deeper than a last-minute scheme by my mother-in-law. I thought I knew the woman I married. I thought we were a team. But now I feel like I've been sleeping next to a stranger who is just waiting for the right moment to pick my pockets. Yesterday morning, I woke up at 4 a.m. The house was freezing. I haven't turned the heat up because, honestly, I don't feel like I deserve the comfort. Chloe was downstairs on the sofa. She's been refusing to leave, claiming she needs to fix this. But every time she opens her mouth, it's more excuses. I decided to go through Silas's personal computer. He was old-fashioned, but he kept meticulous digital records. I found a folder titled Family Concerns. My heart was hammering against my ribs so hard I thought it might crack. Inside that folder, I found saved emails. Not from Evelyn. Silas had blocked her years ago, but from Chloe. Chloe had been emailing my grandfather for the last 6 months. I'm going to read you one of them. It was sent 3 weeks before he passed, while he was still lucid but incredibly weak. Hi, Grandpa Silas. I hope you're feeling a bit stronger today. Mark is so stressed with work, and I'm worried about the burden the estate will be on him once, well, you know. Mom and I have been looking into some protection trusts. It would take the legal weight off Mark's shoulders so he can just focus on grieving. I know you want what's best for him. Maybe we can talk about signing some preliminary forms next time I visit without him? I don't want to worry him. My hands were shaking so violently I almost knocked the monitor off the desk. She was trying to bypass me while he was dying. She was using my stress as a weapon to manipulate an 88-year-old man into cutting his own grandson out of the loop. "Chloe!" I screamed. I didn't mean to, it just tore out of me. She came running into the study, her eyes red and puffy, wearing one of my old flannels. She looked so small and fragile, but all I saw was a predator in sheep's clothing. "What? Mark, what happened?" I turned the screen toward her. "Care to explain this? Preliminary forms? Without him? You were trying to groom him, Chloe. You were working him over while I was in the kitchen making his soup." She didn't even try to deny it this time. She just slumped against the doorframe and started that soft, rhythmic sobbing that used to make me want to protect her. Now, it just made my skin crawl. "My mother said it would be better this way," she whispered. "She said you were too emotional to handle the business side of death. She told me that if the house stayed in your name alone, your resentful cousins would sue you and take everything. She said a trust was the only way to keep the land in the family." "And by family, she meant Julian," I said, my voice dropping to a dangerous low. "She meant her favorite child, the one who has never lifted a finger for anyone. You were going to hand him the keys to Silas's life work, so your mother would finally tell you good job? She's my mother, Mark. You don't understand the pressure," she wailed. "She's been telling me for years that I'm the only one who can save Julian from himself. She said this was my responsibility as the successful sibling. I thought if we did this, she'd finally stop calling me a disappointment. I thought we could all just live here together." "Live here together?" I stood up, the chair screeching against the hardwood. "With Evelyn? In Silas's house? The man who literally had a restraining order against her 10 years ago? Are you delusional?" She didn't answer. She just kept crying. I spent the rest of the day on the phone with Silas's attorney, a man named Mr. Abernathy. He's been the family lawyer for 40 years. When I told him what happened at the wake, he was silent for a long time. "Mark," he said, his voice sounding like gravel, "I'm glad you didn't sign anything. I should tell you, Evelyn called my office 3 days ago. She pretended to be your personal assistant. She was trying to find out if the original will had been filed with the probate court yet. She was trying to see if there was a window to amend it before the court took notice. That's when it hit me. This wasn't just a pushy mother-in-law. This was an attempted heist. But it gets worse. It always gets worse on Reddit, doesn't it?" While I was on the phone, my phone started blowing up with notifications. I checked Facebook. Evelyn had posted a photo of herself at the cemetery, not at Silas's grave, but at her husband's grave nearby. The caption read, "Feeling so betrayed today. It's heartbreaking when greed turns a family member into a monster. To be kicked out of a family home during a time of mourning. Silas would be ashamed of what his grandson has become. Power and property change people. Please pray for my daughter, who is trapped in a house with a man she no longer recognizes." The flying monkeys were out in full force. Her sisters, her friends from the club, even people I grew up with were commenting. "Mark always seemed so stable. How could he do that to you, Evelyn? Chloe needs to get out of there. Financial abuse is real. He's holding the estate hostage. Someone should call the police." I felt like I was being gaslit by an entire zip code. My own mother, who lives out of state and has a complicated relationship with Evelyn, called me crying, asking why I attacked Chloe's family. I had to spend an hour explaining the legal documents to my own mother while she sobbed on the phone. Last night, things reached a breaking point. I was in the kitchen, staring at a box of cereal when the doorbell rang. I checked the Ring camera. It was Julian, and he wasn't alone. He had 2 of his gym bro friends with him, and they were carrying empty boxes. I opened the door before they could even knock. "What are you doing here, Julian?" Julian looked at me with that smug, entitled grin he's had since he was 6. "Mom said I could start moving some of my stuff into the guest wing. She said since Chloe is staying here, the family agreement is still technically in play. We're just getting a head start on the transition." I felt a vein in my forehead throb. "There is no agreement, Julian. There is no transition. Get off my porch before I call the sheriff." "Oh, come on, Mark," one of his friends chimed in, stepping forward. "Don't be a dick. Your wife already gave us the okay." I froze. I turned slowly to look at the stairs. Chloe was standing there, halfway down, looking like she wanted to disappear into the drywall. "Chloe?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "Did you tell them they could come here?" She bit her lip, her eyes darting between me and her brother. Julian said he was being evicted from his condo because Mom stopped paying the rent to teach him a lesson about the estate. I didn't think it would hurt to let him stay in the attic for a few days while we sorted things out." I turned back to Julian. "Get off my property." "Make me," Julian said, puffing out his chest. I didn't make him. I didn't have to. I pulled out my phone and hit the speed dial for the local sheriff, who happened to be a childhood friend of mine, Dave. I put it on speaker. "Hey, Dave? It's Mark. I have 3 trespassers on the Blackwood porch refusing to leave." "Yeah, it's Julian. Thanks." I looked at Julian. "Dave is 2 minutes away. If you're still here when he pulls in, I'm pressing charges. And Julian, if you ever mention my wife's okay again, remember that her name isn't on the deed. Mine is. Only mine." Julian cursed at me, called me a poverty-loving peasant, and they scrambled back to their truck just as the sirens started to wail in the distance. I closed the door and locked it. I turned to Chloe. "Pack a bag," I said. "Mark, no, please." "Pack a bag, Chloe. You invited the people who are trying to rob me into the house of the man we're supposed to be mourning. You are working with the enemy. I can't look at you without seeing your mother's hands pulling your strings." "Where am I supposed to go?" she sobbed. "Go to your mother's," I said. "Since you're so worried about her family trust, go live in it. I need you out of this house by tonight." She's gone now. She left an hour ago, screaming that I was destroying our marriage over a pile of dirt. But as I sit here in the dark, looking at the papers Silas left behind, I realize it's not just a pile of dirt. It's the only thing I have left of the man who loved me unconditionally. And I'm starting to realize that maybe Chloe never did. I found something else in the family concerns folder right before I started writing this. It's a draft of a message Silas never sent to me. "Mark, I see the way Evelyn looks at this place. I see the way she whispers in Chloe's ear. I'm leaving it all to you because you're the only one with a heart big enough to keep it, but a spine strong enough to defend it. Don't let them take the soul out of Blackwood, son, even if the cost is high. The cost is getting higher every hour." I just got a text from an unknown number. It's a photo of my car's tires slashed in the driveway. I'm not backing down. If Evelyn wants a war, I'll give her one. But I have a feeling the climax of this story isn't going to be in a courtroom. It's going to be much, much messier. Time passed since last update. 3 weeks. I'm writing this from a motel room 3 towns over because my house, the Blackwood estate, is currently a crime scene. I wish I was exaggerating. My hands are shaking so badly I can barely hold my phone. Everything I thought I knew about my family has been incinerated in the last 24 hours. Since my last post, I've been living in a state of high alert. I changed the locks on the farmhouse the day after I kicked Chloe out. I installed a Ring floodlight system and 4 high-definition Arlo cameras around the perimeter. I felt like a paranoid survivalist, but my gut was telling me that Evelyn wasn't done. My lawyer, Mr. Abernathy, filed for a temporary restraining order against Evelyn and Julian 2 weeks ago, but the judge, who, of course, goes to the same country club as Evelyn, denied it, saying there wasn't sufficient evidence of a physical threat. That decision almost cost me everything. Chloe has been a ghost. She stopped calling, stopped texting. Her lawyer, hired and paid for by Evelyn, obviously, sent over a separation agreement that was essentially a demand for 50% of the Blackwood estate's value as marital property. My lawyer laughed so hard he nearly choked. Since the house was an inheritance specifically left to me, and we haven't used marital funds to improve it, she has zero claim. But Evelyn didn't care about the law. She cared about the dirt. Yesterday afternoon, it was pouring rain. One of those heavy, gray New England storms that makes everything look like a charcoal drawing. I was in the basement, sorting through Silas's old trunks when my phone started screaming. Motion detected at the front gate. Motion detected at the porch. Motion detected at the back mudroom. I ran upstairs and looked at the monitor. It was a circus. A massive yellow moving truck was backed up to my front porch. Julian was there, looking like a low-rent mobster in a leather jacket, and Evelyn was standing on my porch with a man I didn't recognize. A locksmith. I felt my blood turn to ice. They weren't just coming for a visit. They were moving in. I grabbed my phone, hit record, and threw open the front door. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" I yelled over the rain. Evelyn didn't even flinch. She was holding a stack of papers. "Mark, don't be dramatic. We have a court-ordered right of entry. I filed an emergency petition claiming the property was being neglected and that Silas's second will, the one he signed 3 years ago, names me as the executor. There is no second will, Evelyn." I stepped out onto the porch, ignoring the rain soaking my shirt. "You're lying. Get that locksmith away from my door before I defend my property." The locksmith looked at me, then at Evelyn. "Ma'am, you said this was an uncontested entry." "It is uncontested," Evelyn snapped. "He's mentally unstable. He's been squatting here since the funeral. Do your job. I'm the owner of record," I shouted at the locksmith. "If you touch that lock, you're an accomplice to breaking and entering. I have the sheriff on the way." I didn't yet, but I was bluffing. That's when Julian decided to be a hero. He stepped up, trying to tower over me. "Move aside, Mark. We're doing this for Chloe. She's the one who should be here, not some ungrateful prick who can't even keep his wife happy." I looked past Julian and saw a white SUV pull into the driveway. It was Chloe. She got out of the car, looking devastated. She walked up the porch steps, her head down. "Chloe," I said, my voice cracking, "tell them to leave. Tell them this is wrong." She looked at me, and for a second, I saw the woman I loved. But then she looked at her mother. Evelyn reached out and gripped Chloe's arm, hard. "Tell him, Chloe," Evelyn hissed. "Tell him why we need the money now." Chloe started shaking. "Mark, Julian is in trouble. Real trouble. He borrowed money from some people. A lot of money. To start that crypto firm that failed. They're threatening him. Mom's house is already leveraged to the hilt. This estate, the land, it's the only way to pay them back." I stared at Julian, the golden child. "How much, Julian?" Julian looked away, his bravado vanishing. 200,000, plus interest. It's up to 400 now. $400,000? I felt a hysterical laugh bubbling up. "And you thought you could just steal my grandfather's land, sell it to developers for $2 million, and bail out your loser son's gambling debts?" "It's not gambling," Julian screamed. He lunged at me. Everything went into slow motion. Julian swung a wild punch. I ducked, barely, and he collided with the locksmith, sending them both tumbling into the porch railing. Evelyn started screaming like a banshee, calling me a murderer and a thief. Then, the sound of a window shattering came from the back of the house. One of Julian's friends had used the distraction to break in through the mudroom. I heard the alarm system start blaring, that ear-piercing, high-pitched shriek that Silas had installed years ago. "Police are dispatched," I yelled, though the alarm did that automatically. "Get off my porch, now!" Evelyn was hysterical. She grabbed a heavy ceramic planter from the porch and threw it, not at me, but through the front bay window. Crash! "If I can't have this house, nobody can," she shrieked. "You think you're so much better than us? You're nothing. You're a placeholder." She started grabbing Silas's porch furniture, hand-carved rockers that had been there for 30 years, and tossing them into the mud and rain. Chloe was screaming, trying to pull her mother back. Julian was back on his feet, trying to force his way past me through the front door. I felt something snap. I didn't hit him. I just grabbed him by the collar and used his own momentum to shove him off the porch. He landed hard in the flower bed. At that moment, 2 sheriff's cruisers roared up the driveway, lights flashing. It was chaos. Evelyn was screaming that I had pushed Julian. Julian was moaning about his broken leg. He was fine. The locksmith was trying to explain himself to an officer. And then, the bomb dropped. One of the deputies, a younger guy I didn't know, came out of the back of the house holding a man in handcuffs, Julian's friend. But he was also carrying a small, fireproof safe. My safe. the one from Silas's hidden floorboard in the study. "I found this guy trying to jump out the back window with this," the deputy said. "That's mine!" Evelyn shrieked. "That's the family trust documents. Give it here!" "It's not yours, Evelyn," I said, stepping toward the deputy. "That's my grandfather's personal safe. My name is on the registration for it." The sheriff, my friend Dave, arrived a minute later. He looked at the wreckage of the porch, the shattered window, and the mud-covered Julian. "Mark, you okay?" Dave asked. "I want them trespassed, Dave," I said, my voice dead. "I want to press charges for breaking and entering, vandalism and assault, and I want them off my land. Now." "Mark, please," Chloe sobbed, reaching for me. "If Julian doesn't get that money, they're going to hurt him. You're his brother-in-law." "I'm your husband, Chloe," I said, looking her dead in the eye. "Or I was. But you chose your mother's lies over my life. You brought a man to break into my house to steal a dead man's safe. We're done." Dave didn't mess around. Evelyn was handcuffed for disturbing the peace and criminal mischief after she spat on one of the deputies. Julian and his friend were arrested for attempted burglary. As they were being loaded into the cruisers, Evelyn turned back to me. Her face was a mask of pure, unadulterated hatred. "You'll never keep it, Mark. I'll spend every cent I have to burn you down. You think Silas loved you? He only left you this place because he knew you were the only one pathetic enough to stay in this dying town." They drove away. The rain kept falling. Chloe was left standing in the driveway, her SUV blocked by the moving truck that the driver had abandoned the moment the cops showed up. She looked at me, shivering. "Mark, where am I supposed to go?" "I don't care, Chloe. Call your lawyer. Call a hotel. Just get out of my sight." I went inside and locked the door, or what was left of it. I sat on the floor of the study, clutching that fireproof safe. I finally got it open an hour ago. Inside wasn't just the deed. There was a life insurance policy I didn't know about. Silas had a secret policy worth $500,000 with one specific instruction: to be used only for the restoration of Blackwood Estate. Under no circumstances is a single cent to go to anyone with the last name of my ex-daughter-in-law. He knew. He knew all along. But here's the kicker. There was also a letter from Silas to Evelyn dated 10 years ago. A letter explaining that Julian wasn't Silas's son's child. Evelyn had an affair 25 years ago. Julian isn't even biologically related to the family she's so desperate to protect. She's been trying to steal Silas's legacy to fund the life of a son she's been using to cover up her own biggest lie. I'm exhausted. The house is boarded up. I'm in this motel because I can't stand the smell of Evelyn's perfume that still lingers in the hallway. The climax is over, but the fallout? The fallout is just beginning. I have a feeling Chloe didn't know about Julian's paternity, and when she finds out she blew up her marriage for a lie her mother told 24 years ago, I don't think I'll be there to catch her. Time passed since last update. 18 months. It's been a long time since I sat down to write one of these. I'm sitting on the wraparound porch of the Blackwood farmhouse. The sun is setting over the back pasture, turning the fields into a sea of gold. The air is clear, the birds are loud, and for the first time in nearly 2 years, I can breathe. When I last posted, I was in a motel room, broken and surrounded by the wreckage of my marriage. I promised you a final update, but the truth is, the legal and emotional fallout took much longer to settle than I ever anticipated. But the dust has finally cleared, and looking back, it feels like I've lived 3 lifetimes since Silas passed. Let's talk about the legal fallout first, because that was the slow burn nightmare. Evelyn didn't go down without a fight. She hired a high-priced shark and tried to sue me for intentional infliction of emotional distress and defamation. She claimed the paternity letter I found in Silas's safe was a forged document intended to ruin her reputation. My lawyer, Mr. Abernathy, didn't even flinch. During the discovery phase of our divorce and her frivolous lawsuit, he subpoenaed Evelyn's medical records and, this is the beautiful part, requested a court-ordered DNA test for Julian. Evelyn fought it for 6 months. She spent nearly $80,000 on legal fees just trying to block a swab of her son's cheek. That told the world everything they needed to know. The bridge club friends she was so desperate to impress, they smelled the blood in the water. One by one, the flying monkeys stopped calling her. She was removed from the board of her favorite local charity. The social standing she had built her entire identity on evaporated like mist. Finally, the DNA results came back. Julian is 0.0% related to the Blackwood family. The day the results were made public in the court filings, Evelyn had a full-blown breakdown in the middle of a downtown cafe. I wasn't there, but Dave told me she was screaming about conspiracies and stolen legacies until the manager had to ask her to leave. Julian? Julian is currently serving a 3-year sentence in a minimum security facility. It wasn't just the breaking and entering at my house. It turns out that when his crypto firm went bust, he had committed several counts of wire fraud involving some of Evelyn's friends' money. The golden child was actually a common thief. Evelyn's house, the one she used to hold over everyone's head, was foreclosed on last year to pay back the victims. She's currently living in a 1-bedroom apartment on the wrong side of town, working as a part-time receptionist. The irony is almost too much to handle. Then, there was Chloe. Our divorce was finalized 8 months ago. It was a brutal, ugly affair. For a long time, she tried to play the victim of a narcissist card. And to be fair, she was raised by a monster. But the emails I found, the ones where she tried to manipulate Silas behind my back, were the final nail in the coffin. You can't blame your mother for the words you choose to type with your own hands. 6 months ago, Chloe asked to meet me one last time. We met at a neutral coffee shop. She looked older, tired. The light that used to be in her eyes was just gone. "Mark," she said, her voice barely a whisper, "I just wanted to say, I'm sorry. I found out about Julian. I didn't know. I swear to you, I didn't know my mother was lying about everything. I thought I was saving my brother." I looked at her, and I didn't feel rage. I didn't feel love. I just felt nothing. "Chloe," I said, "it doesn't matter if Julian was Silas's grandson or a stranger. You tried to help your mother rob me while I was mourning. You chose her approval over our marriage. You were willing to let me sign away my heritage for a woman who would have thrown you under a bus the second it suited her." She started to cry, that same soft sobbing that used to break my heart. "I lost everything, Mark. I have no family left. My mom blames me for letting you find the papers. Julian won't speak to me. I have nothing. You have your freedom from her, Chloe," I said. "That's more than you had when we were married. Use it." I walked out and didn't look back. I haven't spoken to her since. Last I heard, she moved 2 states away to start over. I hope she finds herself, but she'll never find her way back into my life. Now, let's talk about the Blackwood estate. Using the $500,000 restoration fund Silas left me, I've spent the last year bringing this place back to life. I replaced the shattered bay window with hand-blown glass that matches the original Victorian style. I refinished the floors, fixed the roof, and, most importantly, I tore down the formal dining room Evelyn loved so much and turned it into a massive, light-filled library. I've also started a nonprofit. Every summer, I host legacy camps for foster kids who are aging out of the system. We teach them about land management, carpentry, and give them a place to stay while they get their feet on the ground. Silas would have loved it. He always said the land was only as good as the people it nurtured. Last night, I was going through the very last box of Silas's things in the attic. Tucked inside an old boot, I found a small, handwritten note I'd missed before. It was dated the day before he went into hospice. "Mark, if you're reading this, it means the storm has passed. I'm sorry I had to leave you with such a heavy burden, but some houses need a fire to clear out the rot before they can truly stand strong again. You were always the heart of this place, son. Don't look back at the ashes. Look at the trees. They're still growing. Love, Grandpa." I cried for an hour after I read that. Not because I was sad, but because the weight was finally, truly gone. I'm not a master storyteller or a content creator. I'm just a guy who fought for the only thing that was real in a world full of narcissistic games and family lies. The house is quiet tonight. The only sound is the wind in the oaks. I'm going to go inside, pour a glass of Silas's favorite bourbon, and watch the stars. The Blackwood estate is finally home again. I tough for blowing up the family? Maybe. But looking at the life I've built from the rubble, I'd do it all again in a heartbeat.